So apparently I've tried twice to upload a video about why CEOs don't go to jail. TikTok doesn't want to let it get seen. Nope, doesn't want to. It's shadow banning it. I think it's just hiding it. So I read this article from 2016. It was a Wharton podcast. I think that's the Wharton School of Finance. I think that's where Trump went. It wasn't about Trump, though. But there was this journalist who wrote a book about how CEOs never suffer the consequences of their crimes, okay? But it was saying that the other problem to it is the Department of Justice, because and this is exactly how the journalist put it, said that the Department of Justice people and this corporate CEOs, they're from the same milieu. And it's interesting that the term milieu is used, because milieu is really only used in psych. It's the only time I've heard it. I have to keep the milieu safe kind of thing. I've never heard it. I'm not saying it can't be used in another context, but I thought it was appropriate, really, for them. So the Department of Justice only wants to fine corporate CEOs because they don't see them as criminals because of all their money. Yep. And the other reason they don't want to throw them in jail is because it'll cause a cascading effect. One I think needs to take place, which is probably why TikTok doesn't want the video shown. So I'm going to put this one up and see what happens. I still have the other one up. I just don't think anybody could see it. And it'll be on my Rumble channel, both of them. But also what this said is that the DOJ has just always been weak, and they won't go after because. So here's the thing. I met a nurse the other day that she had been at work for 21 hours because nobody showed up to relieve her. And yeah, they just didn't care. Nobody cared. 21 hours. Because see, if you're the only nurse, you can't leave if your relief staff doesn't show up. However, I think that's against the law, but corporate isn't worried about it. Corporate, the CEOs of the hospital, and again, this is why they don't want me to, why they suppress this, okay? Because if you think about it, the CEOs really rarely go to jail for stuff that the rest of us would go to jail for. So I mentioned that healthcare system last week, okay? I'm not going to say their name. You can look in my menu. Okay, they have many psych hospitals over many territories, and yet from 2006 to 2018, there were children that were molested in a Virginia psych unit. There were mounds and mounds of complaints of abuse, neglect, understaffing to the point where staff was hurt over and over again. Even a nurse, an RN, who went as far as to write a letter saying this facility, all of their facilities should be shut down. They are that dangerous. Well, that facility today, they were given some fines for all of that, okay? And then the Department of Justice and those three-letter agencies decided that we're going to go into the integrity agreement contract so that they can watch over them. However, they're not staffing their hospitals. In fact, they're leaving them even less staff. And it's not really about budgets, but it never was about the budget, no matter how much you think the CEO is telling you the truth. Believe me, they give themselves big, big raises. Yeah, nurses, when have you gotten a raise last? And don't even get into the union thing, because they all work together, whether you want to see it or not. But while they don't have staff for the units they do have, they're expanding, they're building. But they won't give staff. They won't. They'll let a nurse stay at work 21 hours till whoever comes next, who I don't know who that would be. And legally, the nurse can't leave. So it's a great way to just hurt people. It's a great way to keep everything unsafe. But that's what the hospital CEOs have done for years. Everybody, you know, I've heard the nursing unions, which I've said I don't trust any of them. They're all, you know, tied to the United Nations International Nurse Council, which is why the hospital and the top of the nursing union is pushing the DEI stuff. That's why, yeah, they rally your cause that the hospital CEOs make millions of dollars. Yeah, it's all the stuff those unions don't tell you, though. And that's all the agendas they're on board with those CEOs for, though, or with them on, which is like the DEI, which is destruction, the diversity, equity, inclusion model. But worse than that is that it's not just about the hospital CEOs making all this money. They're responsible for the harm. And that's likely the biggest reason my video is not going to get seen. They are, though. No nurse, and I've dealt with this at places where I don't get a break. I can't even get 15 minutes off the unit. I can't, and there's nurses, this is a regular thing, that in a 12-hour shift can't even go to the bathroom because they're the only nurse. Can you imagine? Now, see, I won't tolerate that. I'm just going to, I don't care. But ultimately, no nursing board should hold any nurse accountable for if they leave. Because here's the thing. The CEO expects you to stay. He'll just pay you. Why get anybody in there? And the nursing boards and our government should be should be sending these people to jail. It has caused harm. It is unsafe to a degree that is unimaginable. Because of course they don't want you to call in many places, they don't want you to call the police in for help. But yet you're the only nurse and maybe a tech. So nurses have struggled, and this is a lot of the reason they leave too, is because, you know, they're not even protecting them, but making sure that they don't know when the next staff comes in. The manager's not going to come in. There's only one manager I worked at one place, but that was part of a full hospital. She was the only manager in my whole career that she comes in, and she does because she's a good person. No, they don't. They just won't answer the phone. And all these brand new nurses. So, anything and so the hospital CEO, because we have a corrupt government and because we don't have a nursing profession that at the top or unions that want to address the real thing here, and it's not just the hospital CEOs and all this money they have. It's that, no, the nurse should be able to leave. It's and I mean, most nurses wouldn't, because if you have a caring heart, you don't want to leave your patients. But that CEO, for any harm that comes to you or to any of those patients, and there's been a lot over the years, it all falls not on the nurse, but on the CEOs. But you know how bad those CEOs are? Them with those leadership will blame you. Well, no, you should have done this. You should have no, there's some instances they all know that you need more staff. There's just many that don't want to say it anymore because the CEOs have way too much power. And the reason they have way too much power and they get worse is because none of them have suffered any consequences for their criminal behavior. So, whatever happens on a nurse's shift lays at the CEO's feet. They have loved for nurses for mistakes made because they don't staff right. This has gone on for decades. No, it's time for these CEOs to be held to the same accountability standards that every nurse does. People in nursing have been abused, have been hurt in many cases, physically hurt, and have been wrongfully terminated, and many, many other things set up. And it's time for these hospital CEOs to be held accountable. Plenty of them have criminal histories, by the way. They just get away with all of their financial criminality and much more. So that's why they go on to not care about you, not care about patients. But they are the one from here on out that should be held accountable. They need to go to jail.